Hello, happy Thursday. Happy Thursday evening. It's currently 7:23 p.m. at my time of recording, but happy any day of the week that you might be listening to this on. I want to make a recording to talk about kind of the junkie or the addict lifestyle. For quite a few years, I was stealing money from my parents to buy drugs, buy over-the-counter medicines like cough medicine and Benadryl. I was doing a lot of drugs, and it was something that I did secretly. I tried to keep it secret for a long time, but I was stealing a lot of money, hundreds and hundreds of dollars worth in change. My parents kept their money in these huge plastic see-through tubs of like loonies and toonies, and I'd take money and I'd go to Shoppers Drug Mart down the street, and I'd go take and I'd buy a bunch of drugs, more or less. That's kind of what I'm getting at. And I did that for a long time. I had a really big problem with DXM, or dextromethorphan cough medicine. Dextromethorphan is the chemical, not the brand. But DXM was probably the first time that I had a really, really bad drug problem. Like, it was like a habitual. I was taking it at least once or twice a week, and at my absolute worst, I was taking close to a gram. I'd take 2 boxes of what would typically be referred to as triple C's, or cortisone, coffin, whatever. But it was like a Life brand. It was like a generic alternative. But basically, what this medication was a mix of, I believe, 30 milligrams of dextromethorphan per capsule, and I think 5 to 15 milligrams of kind of like an antihistamine called chlorpheniramine, or CPM, which isn't good for your body. I think it's bad for your kidneys, and it's also, along with other antihistamines, I believe that they have some kind of like deliriant, or they're not good for your brain. All this shit's like horrific, really bad for your brain. But I was taking this over-the-counter dissociative in really huge doses consistently for maybe over the period of maybe consistently, definitely a few months. I don't think this period of like me taking so much was like what was I don't think I was taking it consistently for very long, but it was a very like checkered, like I would go back to it every once in a while. But Benadryl, on the other hand, or diphenhydramine, which is an antihistamine and a deliriant taken in recreational doses, that's something that I had a much longer relationship with, albeit much more occasional, because it made me feel really horrible, and more or less I just take Benadryl to masturbate and watch porn for hours. That was the height of the excitement that I could get from pornography, was taking this drug that effectively would make me hallucinate but also lose touch with reality, and would kind of make pornography more exciting or more pleasurable. And that's typically when I know that I'm hitting the bottom of a relapse. It's where I go out and against my better judgment, I go out and I buy Benadryl and watch porn for hours, and then I wake up the next day like, holy fuck, what the fuck did I do? And you feel horrific. You feel horrible on it, and you feel horrible afterwards. But it feels so incredible. It's like, I don't give a fuck. That's kind of like the addict part is jumping up my throat to say that it's like, but it's worth it. It's not. In the moment, it feels good, because when you're running away, it feels freeing, it feels liberating. but you can't run away forever. Unless it kills you, you can't run away forever. You've got your head in the clouds. You've jumped so high, you got your head in the clouds. Gravity's going to pull you back down. That's reality. Whatever I'm trying to run away from through pornography, through drugs, gravity pulls me back down. Sobriety comes, and it's a gut-wrenching feeling, because not only did I set myself back, I was like hurting myself with these drugs. It wasn't just, like a recreational high. Like it had lasting impacts on my brain and on my body. So I was hurting myself. I was putting myself in a worse position for having committed to this fleeting pleasure, this instant gratification that was never anything more than a high that I couldn't sustain, a place I couldn't stay in. I heard some analogy or metaphor in terms of addiction where it's like, you get or maybe it was either addiction or it's about psychedelics, but it's about like, you get to sit in the presence of God, but you only get to stay for 20 minutes. I think it was that analogy about being in the presence of God is about DMT, I think, about the psychedelic world. But in terms of addiction, it's more like getting to a point where I'm dumping so much dopamine, so much pleasure into my body that is overwhelming my nervous system, and trying to stay in that place. And you can't. Tolerance builds over time. And it's like before long, I'm chasing a memory of a memory of a time that it felt so good. But I don't have it now. I'm chasing a memory. And that was a big breakthrough in terms of my addiction, and starting to spur away from a lot of these habits. Right, and I don't want to make it seem like it's a really big thing, because honestly, I think the realization was important, but it wasn't like, it wasn't like a life-changing moment. But it was, something kind of clicked in me where it's like, okay, I'm chasing a memory. These impulses I have to be like, oh shit, I remember when I did this, it felt really, really good. But it felt like this is what I'm going to do and this is what's going to happen. It felt like fate or like some kind of vision. But really, that's the way that my Swiss cheese brain was interpreting a memory of when it did feel so good. And I can't feel that. I don't get that feeling anymore. But it's always trying to stay in this memory, trying to stay in this place. And a lot of the music I write is about this. Is about this idea of chasing after this thing that you can't sustain, this high you can't sustain, trying to stay in the presence of God, but you can't sustain it. It's not sustainable. You're running up this debt on your nervous system, trying to acclimatize to this pleasure that you can't get in the real world. So you live a falsity, you live a lie, trying to make yourself feel a certain way. You try to control the way that your nervous system feels through these artificial stimuli, of drugs, sex, porn, whatever it is. In my case, it was porn and sex, all these things. I felt incredibly alone. I was medicating this loneliness and this sense of social isolation. I was sublimating. I'm not using this in the correct way that the definition means to sublimate abuse or trauma, but I was sublimating it in the sense that what I suffered in childhood was horrific and it was horrible for me. But in a sense, to take all that sexual trauma that I was a recipient of and I hated and I couldn't stand, but to sublimate it into, kind of a perversion and a self-destruction that I was in control of and that I was deriving pleasure from, whereas in childhood it was horrific and it was terrible, and maybe it was pleasurable as a byproduct, but by and large it was sadistic and evil and horrible. But sublimating that abuse and that rapist energy that I was a recipient of in childhood, being able to sublimate that I'm going to say like the archetype of the rapist, through pornography, which is like you're consuming a materia, like a content that is of human beings being exploited one way or another, sexually, financially. These people, they're being abused and harmed for the sake of an industry, for the creation of a product. Their suffering and their trauma is being profited off of. It's being not monopolized, but it's being commodified. These women who are having their privacy and their intimacy and their beauty effectively abused for the sake of, say, the other actor, or for the sake of the director and the cameras people, but just the creation of this media, and of which I'm consuming as like this say an impartial, but more so an observer, an observer of these animals fucking in a way that is culturally wrong, that is subjectively, I imagine, pretty degrading and painful and disrespectful, that their nervous systems, I could imagine, are probably leaving them with this deep feeling of like, what I'm doing might feel good, but it's not good for my soul. It's not good for me spiritually. This commodification of intimacy. And I was a willing participant in that because I did not have ready access to that love or connection otherwise. And at a certain point, I was so bitter and I was in so much pain that I'm like, you know what? I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. This makes me feel good. I'm shutting my eyes to love. I'd been disappointed so many times, so I'm going to become this monster that's able to live without anyone else. And so I kind of fell down that rabbit hole for a long, long time. And I'm basically wrestling with this part of myself that is very animalistic and doesn't desire for true intimacy and love. And it causes me, I sometimes struggle with my current relationship, with whom I've been with my partner for a year. And it's been rocky, it's been difficult. And especially with me watching porn behind her back, I'm being dishonest, and I'm holding on to the pleasure that I had. I'm holding on to control. I'm holding on to something that makes me feel good in the moment, but doesn't align with who I want to be. But I'm holding myself back. And and that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I've come a long way. I've definitely eased back a lot in terms of pornography, in terms of like what I was watching, how frequently. But I'm kind of working through relapses as I'm having some trouble in school. I find that pornography is a place for me to escape to when life feels unsafe, when things are uncertain. Pornography is kind of like a world that my ego can escape to. I kind of leave my body and I escape into the screen where there's pleasure and there's control, and I get to look at whatever I want. And it's a very momentary escape. It's very momentary. And the pleasure there, it's never satisfying. It's never truly enough. But I'm just holding on to something I cannot have. That's the desire, to have something I cannot hold in my hands. You know, in Vaseline, a song by Stone Temple Pilots, they talk about, you know, chasing after things you cannot see. You're going blind, as in you're losing your better judgment. You're losing yourself in this Vaseline. You're stuck. You're a fly stuck in the Vaseline, chasing after something you cannot see. And before long, your better judgment leaves and you don't know where you are. All you know is that you're stuck and you don't know why you're doing what you're doing. And I started to wake up. I would wake up out of my haze of addiction every once in a while and be like, oh my God, I'm coming back to an empty department. I cried to my mother. I don't know who I am. I don't know what's happening. I feel like I'm coming back to an empty department. And she didn't know how to console me. I confided in her that I was having a problem with porn, and all she could do was normalize. And say, you know, it's normal, it's normal. She didn't understand. She didn't have the capacity to. And meanwhile, like in terms of pornography addiction, I think it's a relatively, not only is it taboo, but it's also it's a very specific topic. It's a very like I don't think that the average person would know how to think about it. As in, like, it's kind of foreign. It's a foreign concept. It's a new concept. So I don't fault my mother for not knowing how to respond, although I did feel disappointed that she wasn't able to give me that sense of concern, or kind of like, well, what's happening, that kind of bringing a curiosity to my pain. She just seemed frankly disinterested. It was just kind of like trying to get on with life. But I'm my keeper. I am my keeper in this way. I built the cage that I live in, and so this is the accountability piece. I'm accountable for this, and I'm going to leave it at that. But yeah, I'm in a position right now where, like sometimes I just don't know what to do with myself. You know what I mean? I spent so long, years and years and years, self destructing and chasing after pleasure and momentary bliss that I really don't. Sometimes I feel like I don't know. I don't know. Kind of like I feel out of touch with my natural creativity. That's kind of like the byproduct where it's like I spent so long pigeonholing myself into the lifestyle of an addict, that what am I really leaving myself with other than that? I'm letting all these other facets and parts of my character atrophy. What am I leaving myself with? And the fact is, through this pigeonholing, this chasing after pleasure, I'm worsening myself. I'm leaving myself worse off. And I believe that the way out is through, in terms of some things need to run their course before lasting change can be made. At least when it comes to individual change, as in like if I was surrounded by a support system where like people were holding me down and telling me what to do and were making all the choices for me. Granted, it would be painful and it would be kind of like a death of individuality in its own sense, but I think that my connection to addiction, I don't even want to go down that path. Because there was a point in my recovery where I told my parents in a sobering moment, keep me in the house, don't let me leave under any condition because I will go out and buy drugs. I was in a moment where I kind of came back to myself and I told my parents, don't let me leave the house, don't let me do this. And yet, conniving as I was, whether you want to say it was me or the addict part, it doesn't make a difference. I'm talking about, whether or not you talk about a cow or its spots, you're still referring to a cow. That's not really a saying, but you kind of get what I'm going for. But yeah, like in many ways, I've kind of stepped in the way of my own healing and recovery by holding on to this pleasure. Not only consciously, sometimes it is a conscious choice, but there's other times I feel like I'm on autopilot or I'm working by some old programming that's like an AI that's gone rogue. Sometimes I feel like I'm physically out of control. I've got these thoughts in my head. But so there's a myriad of things. And I'm trying to bring accountability, and I'm also trying to bring in a sense of understanding and compassion rather than trying to shame and vilify this addict part. And I'm kind of bringing back that kind of like internal family systems terminology of a protector or a firefighter, more so the firefighter, which is this part that comes in when I have flashbacks. It's like, look for porn. This is how we suppress it. Use the pleasure to escape the pain. Control how you feel. Like right now, I want to take edibles. I want to go out and buy edibles, or that and again, like I'm blended with this part. I'm blended with this part that's like, hey, I want to buy edibles. I want to go to a dispensary. I want to buy a bunch of edibles. I want to get fucked up. I want to watch porn. I just want to escape. I want to get away from this place. It's like a flight response. It's like life feels too scary. I feel too stressed. I want to get out of here. It's so bad. It's so ugly. And so like right now, I'm blended with this part. And right now, it doesn't feel super overwhelming, but also in terms of trauma recovery, where it's like I was living in a really traumatic and really overwhelming situation as a child where I wasn't safe and where I learned to protect myself through leaving my body, through dissociation and daydreaming and pornography and using pleasure to block out the sexual abuse that was happening to me, which would be one way to look at it. Not saying that this is literally what is happening in my nervous system, but I'm interpreting. This is my interpretation as it stands, and that's all subject to change. Self-awareness. But I'm kind of, when I talk about the way out is through in terms of letting things run their course, on one hand, there's a protective part that's trying to keep me here, trying to keep me in my bubble, trying to protect me through addiction. Stay here with me. You know, hush, child, sleep now. It's not safe. Kind of like that. Kind of like, that's the way I interpret A Perfect Circle's, don't fresh, precious, I'm here. Step away from the window and go back to sleep. Like, it's, I love Maynard James Keenan. I love Tool. I love all that shit. He gives me so much energy. I bawled. I fucking cried when I saw them live. I cried. I couldn't believe it. I took a bunch of edibles and I ended up vomiting. I was so sick. But oh my God, I cried. I was so happy seeing him live. Like, this man, I love this man. I love Maynard James Keenan. I can't believe it. Being able to talk about this stuff feels very liberating. And I'm kind of getting away from myself. I wanna wrap this up because I'm still holding on to the hope that I can go and buy these edibles. I'm gonna get fucked up. My girlfriend's out in a concert with her cousin, so I'm like, oh, if this is gonna happen, it's gonna happen now. But it's like, I gotta be at class for 8 a.m., but I don't want to go. And yeah, it's just like I'm at this point where I feel like I'm hunkering down. I'm like tucking in really tight. Everybody get away. I don't want to deal with anything, like a scared child, hiding, in the fetal position, hiding in his hands. Because I think that I can get away with this, more or less. I'm running away and saying, all this is tomorrow me's problem. And that's been the philosophy of the addict. Tomorrow Phoenix will deal with this. But I am yesterday's tomorrow, and I am today's today. And meanwhile, I'm chasing after this pleasure or this promise of something. It is not owed to me. It is not mine to hold in my hands. As much as I'd like for it, it is not mine. I'm holding on to this thing I cannot have. This is the labyrinth of addiction, where you get caught up in the story. You get caught up in where you've been. You get caught up in who you believe you are. You get caught up in the story of, I have, I have no willpower. I can't do this. I can't do this. But the bottom line in the shadow is I hide behind this idea or this theory that I can't control myself, because I think that saying that I can't control this desire to watch porn and just do drugs and destroy my own life allows me to escape from the realization that I want to destroy my life, that I want to do drugs, that I want to watch porn, and that on some level I'm okay with degrading myself for the purpose of ushering, or not ushering, but there's a word for someone who take cares, stewarding an addiction, stewarding a pursuit of pleasure. The shadow of being like, like I like porn, I like the pleasure, and you know what, I get off to it. That's the shadow. That's the part that I have repressed sexual frustration that I vent through this voyeuristic and observant kind of consumption of pornography. I suppose that's the shadow. That's the shadow that I'm trying to hide from through this, I can't control myself, I'm a victim. I'm not a victim. I'm as much of a victim as I am a perpetrator. And as much as I am either, I am accountable nonetheless. I'm here, and I'm alive. And I think this has run its course in terms of this recording. This is another shade of the wounding of Dorn. Thank you for listening, and I think I'll put a little song at the end here talking about addiction and all that funny stuff, but also trauma. Stay tuned. Thank you for being here, and I hope to see you again soon. Please feel free to drop a like and submit a comment below if you have any questions or you want to share your own experience. I'm curious about how people are responding to this. I'm sitting at basically 0 views, more or less. But, I'm curious. Hit me up. Thanks. Ciao.
Is it wrong to fear all the trust undone? But they most dear, not just soul in pieces, those claws which tear young skin all creases, can I still hear desperate to feel in need of a fresh start. My girl, she goes in search